Good morning, everybody. My name is Evan Freiberger, and this is now Milton. Look how much Milton has changed. This could seriously be the strongest storm that we have seen this year. This thing overnight has gone from a Category 1 hurricane to now a strong Category 3 hurricane out there in the Gulf of Mexico. And this thing is expected to strengthen even more. We're going to be talking about what the potentials are for this storm in the Gulf here to strengthen potentially even to Category 4 or higher. I'm thinking, man, I think this is going to make a run at a Category 5 hurricane because just look how impressive this storm already is. Again, this is a Category 3 hurricane. This is Milton, and just look at all of those cold cloud tops swirling around what is apparently an eye starting to show up here in the satellite view. This is a very powerful storm. You can see there's a lot of lightning there in the center of it. If I come over here to the 3D view, you can really get an appreciation of just how big this storm is and how powerful this storm is. As you can see, we got these ripples coming out. They're kind of like shock waves. They're like gravity waves coming out from the center of the storm as the wind field starts to kind of expand throughout the inner core of the storm all the way out into the outer portions of it. And man, it's looking like a very healthy storm. There's the Yucatan Peninsula to the right. So it's still kind of moving slow, but it is picking up speed and it is generally meandering off to the east. So we're going to be going over the latest with this storm. What you guys need to know. Does this change the forecast down the line at all for Florida? So, and also we got a lot of warnings to go over as well. We got storm surge warnings. We got watches out there, tropical storm watches, hurricane watches, and we're going to be going over all of that latest info and also the potential intensity at landfall as well with the new timing. So let's go ahead and go over every single thing right now. So here's the latest cone of uncertainty, and as you can see, this thing is getting very close already to a Category 4 hurricane, and probably by the next time I make a video, I would not be surprised if it's already one. We're going to have another hurricane hunter plane out there investigating this storm, giving us new data. I mean, look at this, 155 mile per hour. That's pretty much, as bullish as you'll see. Very rarely do you see the National Hurricane Center call for a Category 5. The Category 5 wind speed is 157 miles per hour. So you can see that they're already pretty much right on that line of a Category 5. I mean, this is probably, I'm going to say it's probably going to be a Category 5, especially the fact that it's already rapidly intensified this much and it's got plenty of room to intensify more. I think the only thing that's going to throw, maybe a wrench into that is if this thing kind of interacts with the Yucatan Peninsula too much, maybe picks up a little bit of extra dry air from that area, which does tend to happen. So, we'll see if that puts a little hiccup in that forecast. But man, this thing is forecasted to be a very strong storm, and that's going to continue off to the east for a little bit and then eventually meander up to the north. And then by the time we get into Wednesday morning at around 1 a.m., we're going to start to see that storm start to weaken a little bit more as it approaches the coast of Florida. And, by the time it's just off of the coast, 125 miles per hour, max wind speed. So that'd be a Category 3. And then sometime in between, landfall and where in that last little point that we just looked at, it's going to weaken to a Category 1 just to the south of Orlando, most likely. But I mean, we still have a large area of uncertainty in where this thing can make landfall. We're talking anywhere from Cape Coral, Northport, Tampa, up there near Spring Hill, Cedar Key, even is in the cone of uncertainty. So if you folks are, in the cone of uncertainty right now, we're only a couple of days from landfall here. So if you guys haven't prepared yet, you really need to start getting the food and water. You need to start, making sure that you guys have cash on hand, because again, cash is king. You want that food to be able to last for quite a while without needing refrigeration, just in case this thing is a little bit of a stronger storm as it makes landfall. That storm surge is going to knock out power on the immediate coast, and the winds are going to knock out power probably all the way from where it makes landfall all the way to the eastern coast of Florida. And also, we got a little bit more updates in terms of the after landfall impacts. But man, this storm is powerful. It's going to be, it's probably going to be the strongest storm of the year, in my opinion, because we haven't had a Category 5 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. And, I think it could even get stronger potentially than Beryl if this thing continues at the pace that it is rapidly intensifying. So we'll go over all the latest things that we need to know with this storm. So let's go ahead and get right into it. All right, so here's the latest from the National Hurricane Center. And as you can see, Milton is a Category 3 hurricane with 125 mile per hour winds, max or minimum central pressure of 945. When went to sleep yesterday, this thing was in the 970s, and now it's in the 940s. This thing is rapidly intensifying. Those pressures are dropping quickly, and we just had a special advisory out at 7 a.m. Air Force and NOAA hurricane hunters show Milton rapidly strengthens. New watches and warnings issued for portions of Mexico. And they don't usually put forecast discussions out at 7 a.m. It's usually at 4 a.m. So this is why it's a special advisory. They're just releasing a lot of information with this storm right now. We do have some updates in terms of the storm surge. Anywhere from 5 to 10 feet north of Tampa, potentially 8 to 12 feet in Tampa. That would be very life-threatening for a lot of folks that live there because low-lying coastal areas. Going a little bit further to the south, 5 to 10 feet for the Cape Coral, Fort Myers Beach area, 47 going down there to Chokoloskee, and then 2 to 4 feet all the way down into Flamingo. And Florida Keys could get some storm surge out of this storm again with 1 to 3 feet. Further to the north, Suwannee River down to Yankeetown, 3 to 5 feet, and Indian Pass to Suwannee River, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge. So definitely a dangerous situation out there, especially if we get those 8 to 12 feet storm surge numbers actually happen there in Tampa. All right, so we do have some tropical storm warnings in the northern portion of the Yucatan Peninsula, but over here in the United States, we have tropical storm watches and hurricane watches. People that are in those hurricane watches are areas like Cape Coral, Tampa, just the south and west of Orlando, Spring Hill, the Villages, Cedar Key. Over there, we have some tropical storm watches issued. And as far north as Perry, Cross City, Horseshoe Beach, Mayo, up there to the north, and then further down to the south, they go all the way down to Key West. Also, parts of Immokalee, Ave Maria, LaBelle, and Clewiston are all in those tropical storm watches. So tropical storm watches and hurricane warnings have already been tropical storm watches and hurricane watches have already been issued. Most likely they will get replaced by warnings as certainty becomes a little bit higher on where this thing is going to make landfall. All right, now let's check in with our hurricane models. This is the HWRF, the one we always start off with, and you can see it's kind of behind a little bit. So it's not bullish enough, which is weird to say about these hurricane models because they're usually pretty bullish on the storm. But it starts this storm off as a 963, 967, and then by the time it gets to the northern Yucatan, it's probably about a Category 4 strength storm. And then as it moves off to the east, it keeps the strength of it for a pretty long time until it finally starts to deteriorate as it approaches land, making landfall potentially as a Category 3 hurricane there, bringing most likely some catastrophic to life-threatening storm surge into Tampa Bay. So again, Tampa Bay, that scenario is still there with the storm surge and a very close landfall, but this one brings the landfall just a little bit to the north, but you would still get those significant winds on the southeastern portion of this storm push into the Bay Area, and a lot of power outages and storm surge flooding is certainly going to be possible with a scenario like this. Let's go check out some of our other models. All right, so this one is also a little bit behind, so definitely leaning towards a stronger solution in this at the peak intensity because we still got a ways to go before the storm gets to here, and a lot of the models indicate that around in this area here north of the Yucatan Peninsula is where this thing's going to reach max intensity. This model even pushes it that max intensity all the way to the north and east of the Yucatan Peninsula, but you can see after it hits that peak of about 100 or 925 millibars, we're talking about a strong Category 4 to a Category 5 there. It starts to rapidly disassemble itself. 955 near landfall, still bringing some of the most impactful storm surge parts of the storm, though, into Tampa Bay. So I really do feel like that 8 to 12 feet of storm surge has a pretty good chance of verifying here. So again, if you're getting evacuations in the area, you need to be listening to them. Now this is an interesting solution here. So this is tracking a little bit closer to what the storm is actually doing. 948 there near the Yucatan Peninsula. Look at this, rapidly deepens all the way down into a 910 millibar storm. Let's go check out those knots up on the north. Yeah, that would definitely be a strong Category 5 hurricane, actually. And it really takes a very long time for this thing to weaken. We could have a Category 5, Category 4 storm literally probably hundreds of miles off of the coast of Florida there. And then as it approaches, it just right before landfall weakens to a Category 3 hurricane, which is interesting. It could get pretty scary. This could be a nail biter of a situation where, we're dealing with a stronger Category 4 hurricane, potentially even a Category 5 right before landfall, and then it really starts to fall apart as it gets into Tampa. And a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh!" At the last second, it's like, "Oh, is this thing really going to hold together all the way to inland?" So definitely going to be a nail biter. Again, it really just depends on when that dry air and shear really starts to impact the storm. There's no guarantee that it's going to. So definitely be prepared for more catastrophic impacts if this thing does hold together, because it does seem like there is a scenario where this thing tries to hold its act together all the way into the Tampa area. And again, this model is indicating a direct hit to the Tampa Bay area. So we have a couple a little bit further north, and this one's a little bit further to the south. All right, now we're going to be looking at the potential wind gusts. It's actually going to get pretty gusty on the northern coast today, near like Panama City, Destin. I'm sure some of you guys are already seeing it. I've seen a little bit of gusty weather here, all the way down into Tampa and Sarasota, and that's going to continue throughout the day today, going into tomorrow. It should really start to calm down, and then as we get to closer to landfall, looks like those tropical storm force conditions, at least over there in the Tampa, Sarasota, and Cape Coral area, should start to pick up at around Wednesday at 2 a.m. Eastern, and then this storm is going to continue to track closer and closer to land, and then this model, I'm using the NAM model here. It's not the best with hurricanes, but it is getting that, at least the track of the storm right. I think the GFS might be a little bit too far north, but we're talking around 2 a.m. on Thursday on this model, so just know it could be anything anywhere from around 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., maybe even a little bit later, 5 a.m. on Thursday, when this thing could make landfall. But yeah, the NAM kind of brings this in, and we really start to get into those hurricane force wind gusts as we get into later in the day here. I think we're talking about this is the app 2 a.m. Wow, that's just crazy. That is just crazy. 2 a.m. is going to be very not that is like literally one of the worst times, because people are battling sleep, and when you're tired, it's really hard to change your sleep schedule for these storms, and when you're battling that tiredness or you're asleep, the storm is much more dangerous. But yeah, those peak wind gusts are going to be picking up along the coast near Sarasota. 100 to 79 miles per hour winds possible there. If it's a little bit further north, those are going to be in Tampa, and those are going to be those wind gusts with the storm. But you can potentially definitely see some higher winds, especially in the Tampa Bay region, if we still have a Category 3 in the hand. I think this is a little bit of a weaker scenario being depicted by the NAM, but you can see that wind field spreads throughout the entirety of southern Florida, and also on the northern side. I did want to point this out. This is kind of a thing that I've been noticing, haven't really talked about too much. On the northern side, as this kind of interacts with that frontal boundary, we could have 60 to 70 mile per hour winds impact Orlando, Daytona Beach, but those wind gusts can get pretty high as the storm exits Florida. So definitely an interesting scenario there, and also that would pile up some storm surge there near Daytona Beach, Jacksonville, maybe a little bit further up to the north. If this thing makes landfall a little bit further up to the north as well, those winds would be near Gainesville and Jacksonville. So just keep that in mind. Strong winds still with this storm at landfall all the way through Florida, and going potentially up a little bit further north, where a lot of that rain is going to be falling as well near Orlando and Daytona Beach, looking like some widespread major power outages are certainly possible with Milton. Looking at the latest information here in terms of the accumulated rainfall here as Milton makes landfall, you can see that we're going to start to get some pretty decent rainfall amounts already, 5 to 6, maybe 7 inches. Some spots maybe getting up to a foot of rain, and this is before Milton even makes landfall. This is we're talking around 2 a.m. on Wednesday, 5 a.m. on Wednesday, when that really starts to pile up there. And then as the storm approaches, the hurricane approaches land, you can see those rainfall really starts to pick up there near Tampa, Orlando, and Daytona Beach. And that would be with this more southern track, which I think is going to be more accurate. So I definitely think that these rainfall totals on this model are pretty close to being spot on, maybe a little bit higher near Orlando and Daytona Beach. But for the most part, that main strip is going to be where the northern part of that storm goes. We could have anywhere from a large strip of 10 to 14, maybe even 15 inches in some spots of heavy rain. I mean, that's going to be life-threatening rain there. Your streets could flood, cars could be flooded up to their tire wells, potentially up to their door handles with that kind of flooding, especially if it all falls at once. So please be making preparations to also deal with the flooding with this storm. All right, last but not least, we're going to be looking at the significant tornado parameter, just trying to get a grasp on what the tornado threat is going to be like as Milton approaches. And as you can see, southern Florida is probably going to be the first ones to start off seeing some tornado warnings. Early morning on Wednesday, you can see that we do have some elevated values there, kind of in like the less populated areas of Florida, but there's still a couple cities out there. So just make sure that you're paying attention to that. Then as we go throughout the evening, that tornado risk really starts to pick up. This is like probably late night here. So let me double check. Yeah, we're like 3 to 4 p.m. With this too. It's not like super elevated, but there's definitely a little bit of a tornado risk. But it seems like the peak of the tornado risk is going to be right before this thing makes landfall. That would be at around Thursday night. You can see that we're getting some of those values up to 4, kind of to the east of the storm. So this could definitely be a tornado producer. So that's another risk to watch out for throughout the day, early morning or late night on Wednesday, early morning on Thursday. But then after that peak is over with, there's still going to be a chance for some small spin ups, but it really dies off, especially after this thing moves off of the coast. Get that dry air moving in on the background or in the backside of the storm, and that's going to shut off any tornado potential after that. All right, that's it for me. Man, Milton's looking like a strong storm. I would not be surprised if this thing hits Category 4 here within the next hour or so. And then by tonight, definitely would not be surprised to hear that this thing is a Category 5 hurricane. So, thankfully, we're not talking about that making landfall, but it might be a nail biter. We'll have to see what ends up really happening. But thank you for watching the video. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on your way out if you enjoyed this forecast and you want more of them. And yeah, I will see you guys on the next video, which will most likely be around 1 p.m. See you then.